Hello and welcome. And today I'm very pleased to introduce Din. And Sujata has a very interesting story. She started life as a chartered accountant and ended up being a certified health coach, a professional coach, and meditation teacher, along with running cooking classes in the background. In fact, Sujata, I'm not quite sure how you've managed to fit all of those real skills in. But I'd be very interested to hear how you moved from being a chartered accountant into now a renowned health coach.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me here. I am very, very privileged to be here. And I think like many of us, I started my wellness journey just going through sort of the ups and downs. And we go through them during our life and we just begin to normalize them and think this is how it is for me. So I'll just start back from my younger days. I always had digestive issues. I think as a child, constipation was always there. And I just thought, well, that's just me. I'm always constipated. And the other thing as a child that I had was a runny nose. And I would wake up, with a runny nose, a blocked nose. And again, that was something that I just had, let it be that way. And just thought, okay, that's how I am. And it kept getting worse. Things kept getting worse. And what we often do is we ignore things thinking they'll get better or they'll just, go away, but they don't ever, which is, a lesson that I learned. And come into my 20s, I was having a lot more digestive issues at that time, a lot more inflammation in the body. And I got diagnosed with sinusitis. I think that was one of my turning points when I got diagnosed with sinusitis, because I couldn't walk. I was always tired. My head just felt really heavy. The only thing I wanted to do was to put my head on the pillow and go to sleep. And the children were quite young as well. I have two sons and they were very young. And I just wanted to drop them to school, come back, sleep, and then I'd pick them up. And everything just seemed so much of an effort to me. I also had hormonal issues again from a young age. And I just thought, well, I never really had regular periods. That was one thing. And then it was hard for me to conceive as well. Needed a bit of assistance on fertility side to have my first child. And then after my second child was born, I began to have night sweats. Now, in my early 30s, I did not even know what a night sweat was. So the first time I wake up just totally drenched, I just thought, what's happening to me? But realized, these were sort of different hormonal issues that had come from my teenage years now to my 30s, but were progressively getting worse. So I had the digestive issues, I had the sinuses, was always very tired as well. I would have things like acne, feeling bloated. And I got to a point where I was feeling very sorry for myself because I would be seeing doctors, being given medication. And what would happen is I'd take the medication, short term it would work, but then within a short time, a few weeks or a month, again, I'd be feeling sick very soon afterwards. And I'd be seeing different doctors. I remember taking antibiotics. I think it might have been 7 or 8 times in a year. And for me, that became the turning point, thinking, well, this is not really normal to take so many antibiotics, be on steroids as well, try and take, over-the-counter painkillers and just want to feel better, but I'm still not feeling better. So this was a journey that I went on, hitting rock bottom, and then deciding, I now need to get better. And that's where I then began looking at learning. And I did what all of us do. And this is going back so many years where, Google was our main tool. And I'd be looking on Google for, how do I get better? How do I, improve my immunity? I would go and buy a supplement. So I'd also consult with practitioners who were giving me a lot of times more supplements than actually their time in helping me understand where I was. So I felt I was just going around in a circle, not getting better. And I thought, I'm going to actually learn about getting better. And that's the turning point where I decided to study rather than just searching, on the internet. Because when you search on the internet, you're not actually getting the whole picture. And what you do when you search on the internet is you take only what you want from the resources, because you think, well, I want to do that, so I'll try that. But you may ignore other things that you need to do, but you don't want to do. So I decided I'm going to actually study. I'm going to learn first to help myself, to improve the health of my family as well. And it worked. I began to feel better. It doesn't happen overnight. It took, probably about a year before I was feeling much better, because the phlegm that was coming out of my body was like a smoker's cough, where you have a really, heavy cough. There's a lot of phlegm. And I thought, I do not smoke. I live quite a healthy life. I don't eat like a lot of junk food. There was a little bit of, sugar and other foods that come in, but I had a lot of phlegm in my body and a lot of fatigue, a lot of hormonal imbalances. So it took about a year to get better. And again, that was a lesson for me, which I now guide my clients to, is that we can't have an overnight fix. And often we're all looking for that, the medication or the supplement, let me feel better really quickly, but it doesn't work. What we need is the time, that effort, giving the body also, the time it needs, because it can't happen overnight. We've got to where we are because of many different circumstances. Some might be hormonal issues, or some might be inflammation in the body, some might be genetic, some might be environmental, some might be stress, lack of sleep. So there's many things that get us to where we currently are. And we then need to think, well, actually, I've got to change quite a lot to move out and improve my life. So that's, how I became a health coach.
Well, funny enough, I was going to ask you what is a health coach, but actually, I think you've said it very well in your story. And I think it's like, it's absolutely, it becomes a massive whirlwind, doesn't it? And I know that a lot of the Talk Health members have, a lot of people have a lot of comorbidities. So they're taking a range of drugs.
Yeah.
They're not being consulted on about, well, you go in to see a doctor, you talk about one condition. It's very rare that you can talk about a lot of them, or other sort of persistent, low-lying things that go on all the time, but they're not enough for you to speak to the doctor. So it's finding somebody that will guide you through that. And I hate that word holistic, but it's absolutely having a full picture of what is going on. And I think it's quite hard to look at that objectively. Exactly as you said, you just pick what the things that you quite fancy doing, and the ones that literally look like might be a bit more of the hard work, where you would just brush those aside. Anybody would do. And I imagine that's why people come to you as a health coach, is to just go, I've got all these things going on. I need somebody sort of to hold my hand.
And often they come to me because they've tried so many things, either on their own, or they've, read something, or they've been told something. And what they're doing is just working on this one area. But it is a holistic approach, because everything is connected. Even when I work with women who are going through perimenopause and menopause, they might just be thinking about, estrogen, progesterone changing. But we have other hormones as well. And all the hormones have a very delicate relationship. Everything's so interconnected within our hormones. Our sleep plays such a very big role as well, because if you're not sleeping well, it's going to have a knock-on effect on our energy, on our moods, on our hormones as well, on the foods we're eating, for instance, as well. So when now I am guiding my clients, having been through the journey myself, I think it's easier for me to understand where they are, because I was there. I'd been unwell for years as well. And yes, towards the end, when I really had to make a change, it was my lowest point. But many of us are going through these low-level issues that you mentioned. We just ignore it. We don't think it's important enough to say it. But if we ignore it, it's not going to get better. And the trajectory is often it's going to end up getting worse. It doesn't get better. So it's looking at somebody, and I now call myself almost an auditor, a holistic auditor, where I'm actually, looking at what they're eating. I'm understanding their lifestyle. What time do they wake up? What time are you going to work? What is, the busy schedule that you have? Because we're all so busy as well. Trying to understand, are they able to cook their meals, or are they just grabbing something? And then putting it all together and saying, okay, this is currently where you are. Let's look at this. And now let's begin to create a plan for where you want to be in the future. and showing them it's possible and that it's achievable. Because when we're at this very low point, we actually feel nothing's going to work for us and we're ready to give up and just think this is how my life's always going to be. But you just need somebody there who's going to believe in you, who's going to show you and give you just small steps that you can take to move forward.
And I think it really helps to be answerable. That sounds quite frightening, but answerable in the sense that you have to be accountable for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And also, I think, especially for people, if you're running a busy life, you know, you've got children, and you know, this could be a male or a female, but obviously, quite often it falls onto the woman to have the main looking after the whole of the family.
Yeah.
Who's looking after her?
Yeah. And she's let herself go over years. And I predominantly am working with women, usually over 40 years old. Just as you said, she's looking after the house, she's working, she's looking after the children, she's trying to, you know, manage a social life if she can even fit that in. And what happens is she's just neglected herself. And often when I start with a lot of women, they'll say, I don't know why I let myself go. I can't believe, you know, I'm here right now because life in my 20s was very different. You know, I've just seen it decline. And women do need to focus on the self-care, self-love. And it's not about going to get your hair done or your nails done or going to get a massage, but it's actually the little things, the very, very little things that are free that we can just fit within 5 minutes into our day.
And I think along with that, when you say I've let myself go, there's a shame element that comes in, and then which then you go into a sort of mental health that you're not worthy of spending this time or investing in yourself properly. And you're right, you know, people say, oh well, I did go and have my nails done every other week or whatever it is, and it's not the same. And I know one of the things that you're also keen to discuss is about meditation, and I'm sure that that's where, well, does meditation come into your advice to people or guidance to people?
It does, because they're often just living life on autopilot and just waking up feeling stressed and overwhelmed and, you know, looking at the phone first thing in the morning, and they're just rushing through the day feeling they have so much to do. So I actually recommend bring meditation, mindfulness, breath work, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates with you. Bring that into your morning. You do not need to find the quietest place, because if we make it so difficult, we can't do it. You know, I live in London. It's always very noisy. There'll be cars, there'll be people I can hear, there'll be construction work, sirens. So do it where you are. Don't look for that perfect quiet place, but just make some time for yourself. You could do it while laying it down in bed, if that's what you want to do, or you could do it sitting in bed or sitting on a chair or sitting on the ground. Do it where it works for you. Do it when it works for you, but make it part of your life, and start with maybe, 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Just start with a few breaths. And people often will again feel a little embarrassed, or they'll feel that they're failing because they can't meditate, because they've been led to believe that when they sit and meditate, they've got to have this blank mind and be thinking about nothing. And they feel, I'm so busy in my mind, I can't blank out. Actually, meditation, mindfulness is all about awareness and just connecting with ourselves. And all we're doing is just connecting with the breath, really. And I use the example, I can be in this moment, and when I connect with my breath, I can only breathe for this moment, right? I cannot breathe for tomorrow. I cannot breathe for the next, 30 minutes. I have to only be able to take this breath for this moment. And I cannot take a breath for the past either. So the breath is so powerful, because we breathe in this moment, and we can use different senses in our body as well. We could use, the opening, very slight changes, the opening and the closing of the nostrils, or the change in the temperature of the breath. When we breathe in, it's cool. When we exhale, it's warmer. We could be placing our hands. If somebody's finding it hard to concentrate, just take your hands and put them on your belly and just feel the rise and fall. And what you're doing is connecting with your body, because we're in our mind too often. We're not within the body. So with meditation, we're bringing awareness to our body. We become more aware of also these busy thoughts, and they don't stop. but we just let them be. And over time, and as we practice, the thoughts begin to reduce. The thoughts begin to just go into the background. This will take time. Don't feel that you're unable to do it. Just be patient with yourself. And again, this is self-care. Think about how you would speak to a child. If a child came and said, I can't do it, we would never say, well, just stop and give up. We would say, come on, you can try. We'd be very encouraging to them. So the same approach we need with ourselves, as we're getting better, as we're healing, as we're improving our health with the meditation. Sit down, try and take in, 3 breaths, if that's what works for you. Breathe in, breathe out 3 times. Or you could use your phone and just put the timer on for 3 minutes and say, I'll do what I can for these 3 minutes. And it doesn't matter how it goes. I'll just give myself this time. So meditation is powerful. I've seen it really help so many people in just improving their health. And often people are very doubtful. They think, well, I'm not seeing immediate results. It's not working. But actually, it takes time. And it will show you over a period of weeks, months, that improvement coming through. And it's usually happens not when we're sitting to meditate. It's happening in our lives because we're not in react state. We're actually in response state as well.
So I know that we're going to move on and talk about some sort of handy things for us to practice. And in fact, you've just given us one as to how, and it's amazing. As soon as you start talking, I'm thinking about my breathing. Then I'm thinking, well, is it hot? Is it cold? And you become aware. And I suppose it's that awareness, because your brain then switches. Your brain is concentrating on something other than all the shopping list and all the other stuff that's sort of going on. So as a coach, you said that when I've never had a health coach, so I'm very interested to hear what happens. So as you said, you do an audit to start off with, where I presume people have to fill in various bits and pieces, and then how does it, how long do you do it? Do you have to have a coach once a day, once a week, every month? What does it look like?
So when I start with my clients, I ask them to complete a form. And that form just allows me to get a snapshot of where they are right now. And it's a very detailed form. It will ask them questions about their health conditions. It will ask them questions about their sleep. Are they waking up at night? Are they walking? Are they exercising? What are they eating? When are they eating these foods? Do they have cravings? And I also ask them about different aspects of their health, including, do they get migraines or headaches? Do they find that, they've got gas or constipation or diarrhea or bloating? So it's looking at them, holistically. Again, I'll come back to using the holistically, but it's really getting a full picture of like where they are right now. And then we will have a consultation, and I will, firstly identify the issues that I'm seeing with where they are right now. And I'll ask them, what they're able to do, because there is no point in me just telling somebody, well, this is what you're going to do, but they can't do it for different circumstances. Maybe they don't have the mobility, maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they don't have the time. So I'll actually speak to them and ask them, where they are. And then after identifying the issues, whether it's in their foods or things in their lifestyle, I will then give them solutions. And that's my recommendations. Those are my recommendations. So it's a 3-step system. It's identify the issue, make the recommendations, give them the suggestions, and then it is about providing them the support, accountability, which you touched on earlier, because with that, they can actually make the change and see the change coming through. So for instance, if somebody came to me and said, I'm always tired, fatigue comes from many different things. It might be lack of sleep. It might be not having enough, protein or enough of a balanced diet. It might be because they're actually having too much sugar, right? So they're always tired because they're on this roller coaster as well. It might be, they're not drinking enough water. So there's many different reasons why somebody is where they are. So it would be looking at that one thing and then saying, okay, based on this, I'm going to give you some steps to now take. I'll give them guidance on how to get the right balance plate where they are having, the protein, the healthy fats, the vegetables, the whole grains. So it'll be, okay, this is one thing you're going to do. Then this is what we're going to do for your sleep. And this is what we're going to do for the water. So it's a few things, but they're small things. They're everyday things. Everyone's always going to eat a meal. So it's not something that you have to go and buy now. You're going to never need to buy anything new. Just eat what your traditional diet is, because I work with people from different backgrounds, but just eat those foods and then see how you feel. Now, if I said that, I can write it down and say, this is what, my recommendations are. They may just go off and say, well, that was useful, but not do it. And then they don't feel better and they'll think, well, it's not working for me. And I don't want them to be at a point where, again, they're ready to give up. So when I guide, I always will give a recommendation and then say, now you've got to share it back with me. So these are my recommendations, and I need to check in and see how you're doing. And depending on what kind of program they've signed up for, it might be, they're sharing it with me for a month. In my 28-day program, they would share it, for a month. There's some programs that are a little bit shorter, some that are a lot longer. So they would just share with me what they're doing. And because they're sharing, they're actually showing up and doing it. They're not coming up with excuses. And if they're finding something difficult, then I will give them a solution. So for instance, if somebody cannot cook because they're too busy, they've got, a lot going on, it's really saying, well, walk into the supermarket and pick up, 3 packaged foods, because not all packaged foods is unhealthy. They're convenient packaged foods as well. You could get a can of salmon, or you could get a can of black beans, right? That's your protein. You don't now need to go and make something from scratch. So it would be giving them solutions that fit into their life. So I have to meet them where they are. And then they begin to bring in the changes. They're sharing, and because they're sharing on a daily basis, they're now building a habit. And I'm changing what their routines are. So their old autopilot that they were living on gradually and very slowly changes, that they look back and think, well, I can't believe I'm eating so differently. But I never said to them, stop eating sugar or stop eating crisps. But instead, my approach is, can you bring in, more of these healthy foods? So they never feel deprived. And then they're sharing, they're enjoying it. Walking doesn't mean go out and walk 10,000 steps. Go out for a walk, listen to the birds, look at the plants. Send me a photo of something that you found beautiful on your walk, actually, is again some way of encouraging somebody to go for a walk. So a lot of accountability comes into it. And when you asked, as a health coach, what I do is I really am helping them build habits in terms of their food, their lifestyle, and the key is the mindset.
And one of the things that resonated that you just said is that, and I've discovered this myself, but keeping to it is another thing. And that's where I think the accountability is good, is that if you do eat well, you don't want to eat rubbish. You don't need to eat rubbish, because the rubbish is the filler that just keeps you going, doesn't it? But not going in a good way.
And when it doesn't make you go in a good way, you don't want to eat it, because you think, well, it makes me feel bloated, or it makes me feel gassy, or it makes me feel really tired. Do I really want to eat this way? And soon the mind begins to change and say, well, I'll have that occasionally, rather than have a packet of crisps and biscuits every day. It becomes, I'll have that occasionally, and I don't even feel like having it. And that's really where I guide, is not saying stop doing this, but it's instead saying, try doing this and see how you find it. And the recipes I share are meant to then, take them from craving the processed, the junk foods, because they'll have similar tastes to what they want. So it'll take care of the craving, but with real foods, with natural foods. So I have, for instance, Bounty balls. So it's like Bounty chocolate, but a healthier version of it. Or I'll have, instead of Snickers chocolate, I love chocolate and sweet food. So I always had a sweet craving. So for me, I create recipes which are a healthier version of the foods that I craved.
And I think that, lots of people will be listening to this and they're going, yeah, I really want to do it, but I just can't. And I think it's just a health coach enables people to see that they too can do it. It's not something special about other people that can do it. Anyone can do this, but you do have to invest in yourself.
You do. Definitely. And you have to commit and prioritize your health rather than just think it would be nice for me to, have more energy, or it would be nice for me to improve my health markers. It's actually saying, I want it. I make this a priority. My blood pressure being so high or my cholesterol being so high, that is a concern to me. I do not want to be, struggling with arthritis and unable to walk. I actually want to do some. So when they prioritize it, they will then commit.
So one of the things that, I know we had list things, but one of the things that I think would be really interesting is, and you've probably touched on it already, but to be very specific. So, we all have that problem mid-afternoon, and we're just saying, oh, really? We've got another few hours at work, or then I've got to go and pick the kids up, or I've got to go and then I've got to cook a meal. And it's just like you just feel absolutely slumped, got no energy.
Yeah.
What would you suggest for that?
So firstly, do you feel like something sweet, or do you feel like something
I
savory?
would always go the sweet route because I'm very naughty.
Okay. So if you feel like something sweet, it would be, and again, how much time do you have? Do you want to bake yourself, or do you want to go and, buy something? But it could be making something like homemade chocolate chip cookies that have got, oats in them, because oats is a grain with a lot of fiber in it. It's got protein in it as well. So it just reduces the chance of being on that roller coaster. So, you could have something like oat cookies, or you could be making, again, brownies, which have got less sugar in them. Recommendation could be, if you like to bake, and you use 100 grams of sugar when baking, your brownies, instead of 100 grams, can you reduce it down to 80 grams? And you probably won't even notice the difference, but you've now reduced the sugar content of the brownies that you're having. So just tweaking a few recipes, or just buying a healthier version of a food, does make a difference.
And then I suppose it becomes a bit of a game, doesn't it? Once you go, gosh, actually, rather
Yeah.
than having 100 grams, I have 80 grams. And then you look at something else. Well, what can I reduce here?
Yeah.
And, I know that sort of goes to the walking up the stairs when there's a lift there, and, or,
Yeah.
it's how to just make those tiny changes into your life.
Yeah. And they're all incremental, because if we do one good thing, it makes us want to do another good thing as well. And then it becomes this snowball effect where we think, well, actually, now that I've done this, let me try and do something else. But try and do just a few things at a time. Don't try and do 30 things at one time, because that's when people find it gets difficult and overwhelming and they want to give up. I see that often when people, after the summer holidays, when people have overindulged, or in January, when people feel like, I'm going to set my New Year's resolutions, they decide to go and do something so extreme and so difficult for themselves, because it's different to how they've lived. So they'll go and sign up for a gym membership and say, I'm going to go 5 or 6 times a week. But that's so different to what they've always done that they can only manage it for a few months, and their membership goes to waste, and they're not really using it. Or even with sugar, not saying I'm just going to stop sugar, but it could be what we touched on, reduce the sugar you're having. And instead of white sugar, which is very processed, can you use, brown sugar, or can you use some honey and just use less of it? So even though it's a natural sugar, we don't want to be having too much of it.
So, I mean, that neatly goes onto some of the programs that you offer. And I know we're going to be offering, and it's available, is your 5-day program, which is learning what to eat. And I'm sure it covers a lot of what we discussed here. So we'll be putting a link up to that for everyone. And that gives everybody, I was going to say a taster, but it's more than a taster, because it's a foundation for people to start building on. And then you very kindly offered that we will, for a limited period, offer a sugar cleanse diet. Now, I know that you said cleanse is a word that people go, oh my God, but perhaps you might want to explain a little bit about that.
So people get worried when you use the word cleanse, because they may have heard of people doing,
Detox.
raw food, or detox, or juices only. And that becomes very difficult, because you're not having a, complete plate, and you're not having the protein and the fat that you need as well. So when I talk about the sugar cleanse, it's actually about reducing and removing the refined sugars, but you can still have small amounts of natural sugars, whether it's honey or maple syrup, or other sweeteners which you might be getting where you live. But it's having less sugars, and instead of depending on sugar to give you energy, what you're doing during the sugar cleanse is firstly understanding what's causing the cravings. There's no point in dealing with sugar cravings by saying, I stop sugar and I promise I'll never eat sugar, because we know that's going to fail.
That
right?
doesn't work. I know.
Yeah. So with the sugar cleanse, what we want to do is to say, okay, I've got sugar cravings. What's causing them? We've got to identify, again, the cause of the sugar cravings. So finding out, what is it in your daily routine that might be causing the cravings? Is it lack of sleep? So you're going to learn to identify this. I have training videos in the program. So they learn, firstly, why is sugar bad for us? Not all sugar is bad for us. We do need sugar for energy. So it's not like we can't have any sugar. We can have fruits. Those are very good. We shouldn't be avoiding them, because in some cleanses, people will avoid fruits as well. And after avoiding all sugars, they have more stronger cravings for sugar. So what I teach is not all sugar is bad, but there are some sugars that are not as healthy for us. You don't need to stop them forever in your life, but just reduce them. And in the sugar cleanse, begin to identify what's causing the cravings, begin to work on reducing these cravings, not by stopping, but not by stopping the sugar, but by actually eating balanced meals for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack time. So the sugar cleanse has got lots of good recipes in there, and it just takes you step by step, so you can then manage to do it and complete it. And with the sugar cleanse, you'll always have access to it. It's lifetime access to the program. So you could do it once and do maybe 50% of it. You don't need to do it perfectly. Just do a little bit. Do how much you can. Come back to it a few months later and redo it, and you'll find actually now you can do a little bit more. So it's about improving your health slowly and gradually, because then it's possible for you to do it.
And then I think that you can really start seeing the benefits from it, and build up your self-esteem. And think, I can do this, and I want to go on to the next challenge with it and take it to the next level. And having a health coach helps.
And self-esteem is so important, because when we're, that low self-esteem point is the point where, we want to give up, we feel we can't do anything. And it's believing. That's the main thing, I think, as a coach I work on, is saying, you may not believe in yourself. You may not think that you won't crave sugar, but I believe that you can do it. And they'll say, well, really, you think I can do it? Say, yes, let's start, and you will be able to do it. And just having somebody believe in you makes you then want to believe in yourself as well, because you're hearing, firstly, that voice in our own head saying, it'll never work, it won't work, nothing ever works for me. But then you might have people around you who might, be saying to you, well, nothing's ever worked for you, why bother, right? It's genetic, we're always going to crave sugar. Or so what happens is we have these limiting beliefs, and we've got to begin to break these limiting beliefs and look at the possibility of life, when you achieve what you want.
And I think on that really positive note, we will say goodbye. And thank you so much for coming to chat to us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a
Thank you.